This video is meant for 13 plus toy collectors. If you are not a toy collector, then please click away. Well, hello Transformer fans, and we are returning once again to a video series I return to every so often, Who Did It Better? And this time we are taking a look at 3 versions of Arcee. Oh yes. Now, this video is potentially going to cause a wee bit of controversy, seeing as quite a few YouTube reviewers I know of detest the Earthrise version of Arcee, glorify the Generations version, which they are right to do mostly, but there are still some problems with this figure, and think this one is pretty good too. But I am here to determine which one is potentially the best, in my humble opinion. And of course, as you can see, we're starting in the vehicle modes. And right off the bat, Cyberverse is a hardtop. Okay. I kind of get through Transformation why they did it, and probably the Cyberverse crew did it to be a little more distinct. Probably realizing when their toy finally was going to be produced, it would be produced alongside another version of Arcee, so it makes sense. But I still feel like, even with the way the feet transform, they could have tried to convince something that looked at least like a convertible that I don't know, part of me would have preferred if to just have it as a convertible with a hard top that's been folded out rather than this screen. That's just me. But it is a really good vehicle mode, in my opinion. And much like Earthrise, is a shell former. Though for some reason, this figure does not get as much flack online for doing essentially the same thing as this figure. I'm sensing some bias amongst some of the online community. But yeah. Now, also, we should talk about the Generations version, which is considered to be the first official Arcee figure. It is technically true. Now, while I fully admit this is a great figure, one of the problems is that that's the Generations version, which has a lot of IDW coloring to it, which kind of works in its disadvantage, in my opinion. Yes, there's a Takara version, which is more excellently painted compared to this figure. The problem is that is stupid expensive online and really hard to get right now. So, I have to give marks down against this figure for the paint job, as currently this figure is still available right now on the Big Bad Toy Store for $24.99. So, yeah. And we have the Earthrise. Now, I've made a full video review about the Earthrise figure very recently, so you want to hear all my full thoughts and opinions, go check out that video review. I'll try to put a link down in the description. However, I do prefer this vehicle mode over the Generations version, simply for the fact that this figure has one massive problem. Trying to incorporate more of the robot mode into the transformation, that these parts right here are obviously Arcee's thighs and lower legs, has left the figure with quite a large bit of gap on the top. Well, not large, but it's left some gaps there. And I feel like those could have been filled in with some more pieces of plastic. There really shouldn't have been an excuse to have such large gaps. And, well, obviously, this Arcee does not have that much as a problem, except in the back end, but I could take it. How often are you really going to display an Arcee in vehicle mode, having her bumper face you on the shelf? Let's be completely honest about that. If you're going to have an Arcee displayed in vehicle mode, it's probably either going to be displayed at an angle like this, or straight forward like this. So an open bumper area like that in the back, while annoying, is not really in consideration when displaying the figure in vehicle mode. Let's be completely honest. As it stands, I still hold true to that. I do believe Earthrise vehicle mode is superior, at least in my opinion. I think it just looks the best. So, give me just a second to get all three figures into robot mode. And here we have the robot modes, and I gotta say, I still think Earthrise does the better job of a robot mode that looks as screen accurate as possible. It's not to say that I don't think the Generation version isn't good. It certainly has the good qualities, but it is based closer on the IDW design. While IDW is based on Generation 1, there are some liberties taken with the figure and its design because of it. Whereas Earthrise is much closer to the Generation 1 design, in my opinion. And yes, this is basically a slightly more, I guess you would say, modern cartoony version of the Arcee design, which I do like. It is a little bit more anime-esque, if I can be so bold, in some of its design cues for her body. But it does look good, in my opinion. Although I gotta admit, her nose has always been the thing I have a little bit of contention with. Sorry, still working with my lighting rig here. I don't like how the helmet kind of forms the nose, but that's just me. I know some people will complain about the Earthrise figure, as she's a bit of a parts former. This part basically completely detaches. It can be fully attached and transformed, but it is easier just to take this off, and I think it works better towards a smoother and cleaner robot mode, which looks, well, a lot better in my opinion. Because the big problems that both the Generations and Cyberverse Arcee have are, well, rather obnoxious backpacks. Whereas, because she can parts form, Earthrise Arcee can have a much more cleaner looking backpack. Not quite animation accurate, but I do think much cleaner in comparison to the other two. So, it's not bad. It's one of the reasons I have grown to have some problems with the Generations Arcee is that she has this giant booty fanny pack, basically. A booty pack just hanging there over her backside, which is even the reason why she doesn't have, while they were introducing, well, technically she does have it, doesn't she? She has what were introduced during Generations, basically a Figuart or Bandai Tamashii Act 5 stage port. It's not easily accessed because of that pack. So because of that, they ended up putting one in the pack itself. So if you wanted to to hold her up by a Act 5 stage stand or any other kind of stand with that kind of sized little port, it's impossible to reach the one on the body and the one on the pack. Unless you balance it right, it might have her slipping off easier. Whereas with this version, it is right there on the backside. And to tell you the truth, no, she does not have a port at all. Then again, I don't think too many kids are going to have access to a Bandai Tamashii Act 5 stage arm for their Transformer toys, so to speak. Now, the next thing we need to talk about is weapon storage, and this is where, unfortunately, this figure kind of stumbles the ball. As far as I know, there is no weapon storage for her lone gun, which is a nice gun, mind you, but there's no storage for it. Whereas this Arcee, as you can obviously see, has two ports on the side of her leg to allow her to store her guns, and this Arcee has a port on the back of her body to store her singular gun, and I think that is a pretty good idea. However, I do think that this Arcee should have had the room to have that port on the side of her leg. I do think there would have been enough room to put that on there. So yeah, that is definitely, I think, a bit of a downgrade for the Earthrise Arcee, especially since she only comes with the one small blaster in the semi-transparent, cloudy plastic, whereas, obviously, Generations comes with the much bigger, much nicer guns. However, there is one massive problem with Generations in which you're going to have to potentially modify your figure. Now, this is where I have to say BBTS kind of lied to me. I was hoping they had got their hands when I saw that the Generation Arcee was still back in stock on BBTS. They had gotten a version of the Arcee that has a closed hands rather than the open ones this one has. They didn't. They had the open hands. The problem with that is that the open hands have a small little bit of plastic on the bottom of the hand, which, for whatever reason, stops you from being able to hold the guns all the way through. You have to literally shave that off, otherwise she's going to be holding her guns very awkwardly. Give me just a second. Basically, she would be holding her guns like this, rather than like this. And that just looked kind of weird. So, you may have to go in and modify the Generations figure if you want her to hold her guns correctly. Whereas Earthrise, that's not an issue. She can... Come on. I have to also say that the port back there is really tough, so it's very hard for this gun to slip out by accident. Whereas with Earthrise, you don't have that problem. She can easily hold her gun normally, as any Arcee should. So, yeah. There's that. Now, I definitely have to say when it comes to accessories, she does get gypped due to the parts forming of this piece. I also have to state that when this figure was being originally released, plastic petroleum prices were not as high as they are now. Because of that, this Arcee not only comes with her two guns, but her two IDW designed blades made of clear, translucent plastic. So she's fully capable of wielding those, and despite them being square ports, I do think Earthrise Arcee is capable of wielding these. Yes, fully capable of wielding these weapons if she wanted to. Which means she's also fully capable of using the Generations guns if she also wanted to as well. So yes, as it stands, it's a very interesting showing. Like I said, the idea is to compare the differences between what you could potentially get for an Arcee figure, and with the Masterpiece figure coming out supposedly this month. I'm not sure if that got delayed or not. At least as of this recording, I'm not sure. It's still up in the air whether or not it's going to be considered a good figure. I've got to be completely honest. I've looked at some of the prototype photographs of Arcee and of Masterpiece Arcee, and something kind of concerns me on her chest plate. And for whatever reason, it seems like her chest plate is far too low and her collar is too long. And I don't know, something just doesn't seem like it's adding up. The design just doesn't seem like it's adding up correctly. I think Jabi the Hong said it best. She looks like she has grandma tits. Maybe not the best thing to say, but yeah, I don't disagree. She does seem like her chest plating slipping down a little lower than it should be, but that's just my opinion. But yeah. Now, there is one other thing to consider is articulation. This figure is articulated, but it has a lot of limitations. Like, in the past, I've had both of her arms pop off on me because of the way I have moved them for some reason. It has something to do with the way this pack sits on the back, and I'm, I guess, catching on the wheels, and it just kind of forces the ball joint out. It's weird. The other thing about this RC is, well, her knee joints. Those knee pads don't move with the joints. They split. If that's going to be something that bothers you, man, I can't help you there, man. That's just a problem with the design. Now, these two RCs are pretty good articulated, but I gotta say this one is a little bit better. Like I said, this RC does have really good arm articulation as it stands. I don't know what that was. Good leg articulation. But she has a lot of balancing issues due to all that kibble on her back. This RC, on the other hand, I think is a little bit better at being posable. She can pull poses that the other RC can't do, just thanks to how some of her posability works, especially in her arms. So she can do really interesting poses that this RC can't. And one of the reasons you can do that is, I found, if you go back to my review, I've talked about this, because of the way they have her plug into her backside of this, calling it a hoverboard, she's actually NECA stand compatible, or NECA plate stand compatible, which allows you to put her on a NECA stand, or a NECA little plate, and allows you to use this as a way to stabilize her, making it easier to do more one-legged poses, or more wilder poses, honestly. So there isn't a bit of advantage for this figure with that function, is that you can get away with a little bit more posability, and I'll try to do some photos at the end to show what I'm talking about. But yeah, as it stands, I will still say Earthrise RC is perfectly okay to go with, and I think, for me, does count as the definitive RC. But if you have Generations, there's nothing wrong with it. And this one's perfectly fine too, but this one has a big problem that I may do a regular review to talk more about. But a lot of her backpack is attached using clear, translucent pin joints. And I am terrified a lot of those are going to break, particularly what holds her back wheels on are going to just basically break off one day. It's at the point where I'm almost have to consider next time I see this RC in a store to just pick up another one and keep it forever in vehicle mode so I don't have to transform this RC ever again. Because it is a really harrowing experience to try to transform that figure in the way the backpack, canopy, and the back bumpers are designed to transform. What you gonna do? Like I said, I think all three are perfect, but I will fully admit, if you had to force me out and tell me to pick one, it's gonna be Earthrise, because I think it just looks more animation accurate, in my opinion. But that's my thoughts, and I would love to hear your thoughts down below. So give me a comment and let me know what you think. Until next time, this is Titan Zed saying I'll see ya when I see ya.